The Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paula Show. Tonight we're speaking about leadership. Follow what I say or leave. I have the last say. Remember, your salary increase depends on our relationship. On the other hand, someone says to you, I understand your challenges and I'm willing to work with you until your issues are resolved. Tonight on the Paula Show, I've invited Jameel Jonathan Lee to speak about leadership, and Cathrona Samuel is here with us as well. It's a very interesting conversation. Stay with us on the Paula Show. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. Remember to watch the Paula Show via CTV Channel 2 on Tuesday nights at 9, and on Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1 in the afternoon. The Paula Show inspires, entertains, and transforms behavior. Also remember to like me on Facebook, The Paula Show. Tonight, Jameel Jonathan Lee is on set again. We love having you.
It seems so. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Pleasure, always.
And Miss Cathrona Samuel, thank you as
Pleasure
well
to
for
be
accepting our invitation. We're speaking about leadership tonight. What's your role?
My current role? Well, because of course, I think that I've had quite a few leadership experiences, but currently I serve as the acting director of youth affairs for Antigua and Barbuda. So it's very interesting.
Very interesting, and that's a high-profile position.
Thank you.
Miss Cathrona Samuel?
Well, I've been with the Antigua Public Utilities Authority for the past almost 14 years.
So that's who we need to blame.
That's who we need to blame? No, she's good.
Yes, in a capacity that does not directly affect a lot of the issues that consumers
I like
have
that
some
comeback.
grievances about. I've served in a couple of leadership roles. Right now, I am the Director of Sales, Retail and Corporate in the APO Telecoms business unit.
You need a lot of leadership skills for that.
Yes.
Internal and external
Definitely,
customers.
yes.
Leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the effort of others towards the achievement of a goal. That is my definition of leadership. What's yours?
I think I would simplify it and say leadership is influence and responsibility.
Okay. Samuel?
I think leadership is inspiring and motivating persons to accomplish a common goal and vision.
Sounds good. There are similarities.
Yeah.
Yes, and I guess
And of course, it's a wide topic.
Exactly,
And so you will
yes.
find a wide variety of definitions that are out there, especially in academia from the scholars. But the commonality is that true leadership is to motivate, to inspire people, to influence persons.
and
to
we're
gather
keeping
around
it
a
simple
common,
tonight.
a common goal.
Simple and real, so that everyone can understand this information that we're presenting. Who are the leaders that are influencing you? One, it could be somebody who's
Who's deceased?
not influencing you still, who might have influenced you.
Well, a current influence in my life, very strong current influence in my life would be my permanent secretary,
And who's that?
Miss Andrew Joseph.
What about her that's so special, though?
I think it is the stability that I observe in her, and that is something that, the political arena can get very dicey, and you have to learn how to navigate your way through it. Many different agendas
Maintain
that
calm.
are out there, and so the stability in walking through all of that while maintaining your character, first of all, maintaining your integrity, and reaching forth reaching forward for your objectives is a very good pattern.
And
that has
achieving
been,
those common objectives that Miss Samuel spoke about.
right, is a great pattern to follow.
And you?
Well, a leader that has influenced me greatly would be my senior elder, who is the leader of my church community. That is Wingrove Spencer.
Oh, he's at the top of my list
Oh,
too.
you've met him.
Oh, I've met him.
He's been a guest here one or two
Several
times.
times, yes.
Yes. So definitely, he has inspired and motivated me simply because he leads by example. So it's not difficult to follow someone who you can see what he puts before you clearly built out in his life. He's also assisted me in terms of being a leader in the professional environment. And a lot of people would think that, okay, what can your pastor tell you about leading in corporate
Yes.
Antigua? But I find the values are very transferable.
Yes.
So the way that I observe that he leads Precision Center, I've been able to take pattern off of that and take it into the workplace. And I've learned more about leadership in the workplace from him.
And it's working.
Working very well.
My guy is Martin Luther King and another one, Fidel Castro.
Interesting. Please tell why.
Deceased.
Yeah, everybody's deceased, but
Orator.
why? Just the...
Yes,
Okay.
and Martin Luther King, he had a calm about him, similar to, in spite of all the adversities, he remained calm, no violence. Fidel Castro, on the other hand,
His
is...
philosophies.
Yes, on the extreme. I like someone who is able to
Take
overcome
a position and stay with it.
obstacles. And yes, you see why I like him? He said, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. We remain focused, we will not flinch.
A
I
dictator.
like a guy like that. He wasn't a dictator, he was a focused man.
All right.
Who was a dictator?
Maybe I like
And
dictators.
inspired followership.
Exactly. Listen, y'all don't take my people from me, please. I accepted
just
Miss-
seeking to
I accepted
understand.
Mr. Spencer and I
Yes,
accepted
yes.
Miss Sandra.
And they
Leave me with my deceased
effective
people.
leaders, I would say.
Exactly.
Followership may be under duress in some cases.
Listen, we're not going there. We're not going there. Former General Electric CEO Jack Welch contends that the best leaders display 4 E's. Very high energy levels, that's number 1. Ability to energize others around common goals. The edge to make tough yes or no decisions. And consistently execute and deliver on promises. 4 E's.
I agree. I agree in most respects. I want to, however, suggest that there are leaders at different levels. And so the individual who might be leading in their home may not exhibit all of those things, and it does not devalue or suggest that they are not a strong leader. But of course, the wider the base, or the wider the level of responsibility, the greater the level of responsibility rather, I think yes, a lot of those things would definitely need to come into play in greater degrees. At the end of the day though, I may not be very energetic, but once I am able to communicate what I am thinking, the vision, we'll call it, or at least just simply the idea that I have where
But
we want to go.
energetic doesn't have to be dramatic. You can be energetic, but you're not, vociferous and loud.
So we know that everybody's not going to be a Paula.
Oh,
right? But,
you have
but
just broken my spirit.
No. You are energetic. You are. You
most
know
times,
that. Yes.
most
And so you
times.
are the example of an energetic
And then
leader.
Cathrona, she may not be hilarious like a Paula, but in her own sphere, she is a great leader.
And I think all
Right.
leaders have a good balance of those
Yes.
E's, those 4 E's that you
Yes.
mentioned. Some may require more than others.
Right.
The coach of a football team may need to be able to go out there and shout.
Give me
and-
another
yeah,
one. Or
and
an
really
army
push the guys.
officer.
Right. Right.
Yeah, for me, energy is not going into the conference room with pom-poms and
Yeah.
telling everybody, hey,
As a
today,
cheerleader.
but they feel my energy
Yes.
because they can feel my motivation, my enthusiasm, my drive. So it may come out differently, but there is still energy. And I feel for everyone, you just have to be able to go into the situation and determine, okay, do I need more edge today? Do I
Yes.
need more energy? What is it that the
So
situation
depending on the
requires?
situation,
Exactly.
Yeah.
you bring your game
You
plan.
determine what is
Yes.
necessary. Because
Because you
said, the
can act out
individual-
of character too, meaning you're too energetic for a particular situation.
Right. And for an individual that may not necessarily be high energy, again, it does not mean that in your own right, you are
You're
not a good leader.
Leaders are different.
They are. I mean, it's
We're all
the
different people.
Yeah, people.
Different personalities, different experiences. So don't expect one leader to be the same
Like
as another
that's
leader.
right. And as well, we're also leading in different contexts.
Well, that
and so
too.
sometimes the approach and the manner in which you might lead one group might have to change
To suit another
group of individuals. Yeah?
And even in your household, you have 4, 5, 6 children. They're all different. And how you discipline one child might not be the discipline required for another child.
Exactly.
And you know me, I have that experience. So we are speaking about organizational culture. And when I speak about organizational culture, I'm not only speaking about the workplace. I consider my home an organization. I consider church an organization. The same football team you're talking about, they're
Yes.
all, you know, units, organizational units. And I find that orientation is very important. People need to know what's expected of you.
That's right. Because if you don't set the expectations and you don't set the standards, somebody else is going to step in and set it for you, and it might not be the thing that you want.
Might not be
in
positive intervention.
Precisely.
Your
Precisely.
thoughts?
And culture has to be communicated, and not just verbally, not just in writing in the form of a mission statement or value statement. It really does have to be reinforced by the actions of the leader, by the actions of the employees. Because you can have a culture on paper, but within an organization, you have people with different personalities, and some may have very strong personalities. And what I observe is that there's the culture, but then there is the culture that is built by those who have the dominant personalities. So for instance, there might be some organizations that have a formal method of communication. You want to get some information out, you send out a memo.
Yes.
But the culture could be based on the grapevine.
Grapevine is very
Yes.
important.
Gossip.
Well, all grapevines are not bad, because sometimes it's not only the gossip you want to share, but you can use any bad situation for good. So the grapevine can be used to share the culture, the formal culture that you would really like to permeate that organization. So when we hear
That is tricky, but yes, can be effective.
It
but,
can
but,
be.
but I think you would have
you
to
have
be
to know how
very
to
skilled.
use it.
Yes,
Yes.
very
yes.
skilled.
But that's what
to-
we're talking about tonight, leadership. And leadership requires extraordinary skills. When I think of leadership, I think of mutual respect, accountability, reliability, and then I also think of delegating. A lot of leaders are afraid to delegate because there's this threat that this person might upstage me.
Which is sad. It is really sad and
You can
unfortunate.
say that.
It is sad and it is unfortunate, and I think it speaks to a lack of understanding as to, again, your role as a leader. What we really should be trying to do is work ourselves out of a job. And the benefit of that
Do you really believe that? Because
do.
people say that. But do you really believe
I
it,
do.
or it's
I'll
just...
tell you why. If you can develop people to the point where they can do what you do, you become indispensable.
In what way?
In what way? There are very few people who can do that. And that in itself becomes a skill that is highly marketable and
maybe
and
not
desired.
necessarily for that
Not
organization.
necessarily for that organization, but wider
yes,
afield.
Yes, you become
all
more
right?
marketable.
Exactly, because people, other leaders, when they're seeking mentors and they're looking for somebody to look up to, they will have seen your
Identify you,
track record
yes.
of developing leaders, and so they will need you. You then become
That's a
indispensable.
positive way of thinking about it, but then when somebody is in the actual position and you're feeling, wait, this young person, or even an older person, this person seems to be, you know, a good replacement for me. Most times, You don't want that person to
A
excel.
question, how long do you plan to stay in one position?
Well, we're talking about organizational culture, and you know that there's some persons who think I'm here from birth to the grave. So I see Miss Samuel bobbing her
You know,
head.
because it's interesting, and especially being in an organization where I would say turnover is low, and persons who are there usually have made their career there. And so we do have that challenge. How do you ensure that there's that environment that's created where you can bring in younger talents and persons are not intimidated and persons don't feel insecure? And I really think it does come down to insecurity. If as a leader there is a fear of being upstaged, it means that I'm an insecure person. It means that there's some things inside of my identity that have not been fully formed. And so when someone comes in, I see them as a threat. Whereas a leader who is secure and certain and knows who they are would appreciate that. I appreciate
And
when
use
there's
it to
somebody
your
on the
advantage.
team, yes, who knows
Yeah.
more than I do.
But you
I
have to be
appreciate
skilled to
skills.
do that.
Yeah.
And you made a very valuable point. You have to be secure on the inside in order to offer somebody else an opportunity that might cause you to leave your job eventually.
Although I would want to think that's the goal, but I may have a different perspective.
Well, you're not the ordinary leader.
And that's not everybody's goal.
Exactly.
People are at different levels of
Exactly.
actualization.
That is true.
And
So-
some people just want the security of a job. And when that is threatened, it becomes a huge issue.
Exactly. You see a dragon instead of that nice person that you knew
Of
all
course,
along.
the times that we're now living in, and I understand that
You'd want to hold
previously-
on to your position just as scarce.
Well, no, I wasn't even thinking in that sense. I know previously and the generations before me, the loyalty to a company and to an organization was something that was greatly valued. But truthfully, no, that perspective has changed. And we're being told you really shouldn't spend more than 5 to 7 years in a particular post, in a position.
Some persons are not listening to that. People love to know that they have a job. You're thinking of your future goals. You're thinking of your family. You spoke about Miss Sandra and stability. Some people view that as stability, to have a job from the start of their career to the end of their career. They're already thinking about pension while you're thinking of promotion and global recognition. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show already. I'm excited about this leadership conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Tonight we're speaking about leadership on the Paula Show. A good leader wins the heart of followers with sincerity, passion, and the ability to give voice to a vision roomy enough for others to recognize themselves in that room.
That's a mouthful.
It actually is. Simplify it.
I guess
A good leader is
what I
one who
did
gets
hear
people to
that-
follow the vision.
Yeah, but not only following the vision, still having the balance where persons can allow their own creative self to emerge and they can see themselves inside of it, so that it's not something that is imposed upon them, but that they can
They embrace it.
yeah, and they find ownership inside of it. That's what I heard.
What
as
did
I
you hear,
listened to
Miss
that.
Sam?
I heard that a good leader creates the space for others to execute in a way that really maximizes their capacity and their potential. Because people are differently motivated.
Yes.
And people do have different means of getting to the same end. And a leader is able to discern that and create that environment where everyone can feel that they play a valid role.
Is that possible? That everyone can feel that
is.
way?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
But
Even
it
in
takes a
large
very
organizations?
skilled
Even
leader.
in large organizations. And the challenge with large organizations is that you're going to have a wide array of leaders who might have very different leadership styles. And so while one would value the whole option of creating a space for employees to be creative and
Yes.
express themselves,
Yes.
another might be, I'm just about getting these goals and objectives met. You just come and work. Clock in, clock out. Make
Yes.
sure at the end of the day you're done. So it does really create a challenge.
Yeah. Right people in the right job, it's easy. Wrong people.
In the right jobs.
No, how can you help the misfit to excel in a job? You know this person is not the right fit for a particular job, but you're willing to give the person a chance because you see potential.
I don't understand. are you saying that you know from the onset that the individual does not have the capacity for the job, or are you saying that at the initial they don't have all of the skill sets that are required?
The person doesn't have all the skill sets. The person may not even have the academic qualifications, but you see something, you see potential within this person, and you're willing to give the person a chance to excel.
See, I'm not sure that there really is, for instance, a perfect resume. I'm not sure that when we create job descriptions or profiles for a post, that there is anybody out there who perfectly fits it. That's very rare if you ever find it. And so I think the reality is that more often than not, people have to be groomed into a position.
So in other words, we're all given a chance
We're
then?
all given a chance.
I didn't realize I was given a chance.
So you really thought
I
that
thought
you
I
were,
was
you were the
selected.
it thing?
Yeah.
So sorry to burst your bubble.
Miss Samuel, tell me you don't agree with him.
But you know, in my experience,
Yes.
I have not had the opportunity all the time to select persons for the roles that have been identified. I may inherit a team, and I have inherited a team. And you enter into that situation, and you realize that there are persons functioning in roles that they might not be suited for. The approach that I always take is not to immediately make a call. Not
Give
to
them a chance.
give them a chance.
Yes.
Of course, everything has to be done with principle. And so the chance is executed inside of a context. You give them certain objectives.
Yes.
What I like to do is put persons on a development track. So we sit down and we have a discussion. We're like, this is the job that you have been tasked with doing. These are what I perceive to be your strengths. These are what I perceive to be the things that you need to work on. And we're going to have coaching sessions every week, every month. We're going to track your progress. If at the end of the day, you're not really fitting into the role, we can look around. We can look inside of the organization and see where you might be a better fit. But it's always good to lay it out before persons and give them goals and objectives to meet, work with them, and then see how they can fit
So
And I
in.
think
even-
the issue of
sorry.
transparency, right? I think the issue of transparency is very important inside of that process, so that persons, they're not blindsided and they're not shocked, but they're very aware, and they can make conscientious decisions, informed decisions as to are they going to participate willingly, or at least at the end of the day when a change or a shift has to be made, hopefully they should understand.
Yes.
And it's not, the change is not to degrade them, but where they too are able to see that the shift is in
Do
their
some
best interest,
introspection and realize that.
and to help them
Yes.
find a space that is better suited for them, and
But
they can appreciate it, especially if they have the drive to work.
Okay, but do you know sometimes it's not that people are underperforming, it's that they have too much to do. I have known of situations where somebody is promoted to another role, but then because of cost-cutting measures, someone is not hired to fill that spot. And so you're working at the new position and you're still offering assistance to the job that you knew for about 10 years. And because you want to be the hero and please your employers, you're not telling them that you're tired and you just can't do it. You try to do it all.
And while, yes, and I understand those situations and those circumstances, and the reality that does not only happen in this scenario that you identified. I think it is very important for individuals, yes, to give their best, give your best, but there must be a cutoff point, and that is something that you have to determine within yourself.
But some leaders don't understand cutoff points.
And I was going to get to that, especially as leaders. Leaders too must know their cutoff point. This is not your entire life. And when we build our lives solely on this one particular thing, the rest of life falls out of whack, falls out of balance, and we in essence become dysfunctional.
So you have dysfunctional leaders and dysfunctional associates.
And thus a dysfunctional organization.
Oh my,
And I find
tell
that's something
me.
that is transferred, because if that's the mode of the leader, you find that the employees will take that on. It's all about culture as well. If I'm a leader that just loves to overwhelm myself and loves to micromanage and feel that I can do everything by myself, that will be transmitted to my employees. if I'm driven by deadlines and I'm always under the gun and I'm always appearing frustrated, my employees will appear to be the same way.
So the leader sets the culture.
The leader does set the culture
And
in
it's
a lot of the
amazing,
cases.
as Miss Summer is speaking about it, because I'm actually thinking
Of yourself?
No,
Oh,
but of
okay.
a particular organization that I would have interacted with, and the leader generally complains about having so much work to do and, as it were, not being able to complete tasks. And it almost appears as if the organization has taken that on, and so it's like a chip that everybody wears on their shoulder.
We're always busy.
Yes, and you know,
meetings.
and we're tired. You know, we just have so many deadlines, and you know,
things
you're
to do about
you're
nothing.
standing back and you're listening to them, and you're thinking, okay, we have deadlines too. But, you know,
What's unique about this?
but just as Mr. Ahmed said, you know, the leader will transmit that, and so we have to be very careful as leaders
About the messages that we are sending.
and
the
do
messages
that
we're
introspection. Sometimes it's not even things that we're fully conscious of, but maybe subtly we're passing them on.
Nepotism and favoritism. How are we dealing with that in the workplaces? And even in
nepotism a
our
bad thing?
even in our homes as well,
Is nepotism a bad thing?
to some degree.
I think you have to be careful because it's about the perception that persons have as well, because of a decision that you might make to hire someone, to promote someone that might be connected to you outside of the professional environment. And so there has to be clear communication as to why this person is receiving the promotion, why it is that they have been selected. Because yes, it could be my goddaughter, but it could be somebody who is quite suited to
Exactly.
the job and was hired based on the fact
Merit.
that they are competent and capable of doing so.
And on the other hand, it could be that the person is not suitable for the job, but because of the familiarity and the relationship,
Yeah.
that person is offered a position, and that person might be promoted in the organization, and everybody's wondering, wait, we've been here all along and we've not been treated so well with bonuses and everything else.
And so,
So it goes
yes,
both
it
ways.
It does.
Yes.
And so where there isn't merit, regardless of the relationship, whether there is a close relationship, whether there is familiarity or favoritism, that ought not to exist. However, on the flip side, it is important, I think persons need to recognize that if they want to advance, if they want to grow, that you need to take personal responsibility. And there are certain things that are required and that good leaders will be looking for. There needs to be a degree of loyalty. There needs to be a capturing of the culture of the organization and a willingness to do what is necessary to advance the goals and the objectives of the organization.
Remember, you did say leaders need to know when to cut off and employees need to know when to cut off.
Still.
And sometimes
But they're
doing
still
and doing
giving
and
your
doing.
best. And notice I did say that, give your best, but know when to cut off.
Okay.
All right? And so when you are giving your best and you are growing,
Somebody
and as
will
well,
notice.
and you are engaging in a process of personal development, it may not happen right away, but someone is going to notice, and the opportunities, the doors will be open to you, and persons cannot, or I shouldn't say cannot, persons should not feel
Because
that
the evidence is
simply
there.
because you have longevity that you should be promoted.
That's another topic.
I just wanted to step back to the issue of nepotism and favoritism
Yes.
that you covered, because it is a real issue.
Of course
and
it
I feel
is.
that as leaders, we need to be able to manage that well. And we
Yes.
spoke about transparency earlier on.
I was
And
about to go there, but go right ahead.
That's very important. I've made a personal choice never to interview anyone that I know closely, anyone who is a close relative,
A friend.
just someone that I have a close connection to. I excuse myself from the interview panel. If I had recommended them to the job, I trust that they're competent enough to be able to navigate that process without me
Yes.
having to influence it in any way. So the final decision is never mine. And that's important because it transmits something and communicates something to my fellow leaders as well. It tells them that I'm transparent and I'm fair. And then that assists in terms of even eventually the person is hired and integrated into the organization. You realize sometimes you have advocates,
Yes.
because they're persons who would have been part of that process and understood that it was managed
Yes,
well.
you did not
and will
influence
assist
the
you,
process
in
in any way.
managing it.
Too many leaders assume wrongly that a charismatic personality and take charge attitude are all they need to enable people to excel. Harvard Business School. Mr. Lee is dying with laughter. What are your thoughts? I can almost read your mind.
I'm recalling my late grandmother, Reverend Rosalie, and
She was a take charge?
I don't think anybody would have characterized her as charismatic.
I'm not saying
Or-
anything. I loved her dearly.
I loved her dearly, but she wasn't charismatic. That's the reality. But she was a great leader. And more, I am starting to appreciate and to understand some of her approaches. Some of the approaches that I thought initially was laid back. But understanding the importance that she placed on building relationships and preserving the relationships
And expanding that network.
and allowing the relationship to be the influencing factor to find the place of agreement, commonality, so that the objectives could be met, as opposed to the charismatic leader who
Take
everybody
charge.
just excited about, or the take charge leader who is almost a dictator and
Talking about
aggressive.
my guy, Fidel, leave me alone. Tell me, Miss Samuel.
It's interesting because I'm just thinking about the leaders that motivated and inspired me. And they weren't the quote-unquote charismatic take charge. They were the leaders who would come into a meeting and take the time to find out how my day was going. And would ask about the family. And would just ask about various things, nothing to do with the business at hand. And I remember being a young professional wondering why they're wasting my time. Because I go into a meeting and I want to hear, okay, this is what we need to do.
Yes, the targets.
Yes,
Let's
the targets, give assignments, and let's get going. But I learned to value those leaders because I saw they were invested in me. And they were concerned about my life.
I like that. It's a good discussion tonight.
You're welcome.
I like you guys. You're great leaders already. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Tonight, whether you're a leader or not, you should be watching this program and making notes, because the information is like gold nuggets. I'm loving it. It's great. Jameel, Jonathan Lee is here with us, and Cathrona Samuel is here with us as well. Maybe you guys would agree with this. The great leaders tend to be humble, pragmatic, and more like plow horses than show horses. But they get their best results from their people. Same Harvard Business School. So all great leaders are humble?
I think it's necessary, and all great leaders are humble. I mean, it may come across differently. We may seek to define humility differently as well.
Submissive.
But humility is really important because it demonstrates to the people that you see them as peers and as equals, and that you're partnering with them. I'll just give you an example. The department that I'm in right now, one of the things that I deliberately chose to do very early in the game, we had our Christmas luncheon. And I was invited, and I turned up. And immediately I put on an apron and a hairnet and went to serve the food.
Oh my Lord.
And I was new to the team.
Yes.
And I understood that I didn't want to make them feel like this
to
was
get down
somebody
in the
coming,
trenches.
coming into lord authority over them. We're partnering together. And I wanted them to understand I have no problem serving you your lunch. That is how much
You're
I
like
value
Jesus.
you.
We're servants to each other.
People are moved by that. And for me, it's not just putting on a show. It
You're
is
not
really,
a show horse.
Yeah, it's really
You're
having a
plow
heart for the
horse.
people and doing things out of that.
And that's what you want, to touch their hearts. Touch their hearts. And if you can touch the people's hearts, they will rally around you. I'm thinking, of course, I think it's clear, it's known that I have a bias towards the scriptures, and it informs
Don't
a lot
we
of,
all?
of what. Well, I'm not only speaking to us, but to those who are are watching.
Yes.
And so, you know, for those who may not fully appreciate that, they'll understand why I will default there. And recalling one of the great leaders who's recorded there within the scriptures is David. And when David was coming into leadership in Israel, there was a juxtaposed approach between him and Saul. And one of the things, whenever people came to David, he would question them and he would ask them, is your heart with me as my heart is with you? And so there is a necessity for that heart connection between the leader and his or her people.
And in leadership, talking about knowing the heart of the people understanding your heart, your tone, communication is important. There are some trigger words that can cause people to flip, and we need to understand what are those trigger words and eliminate them from our vocabularies when we're speaking to those particular persons.
That's true, and there are some trigger words and some words that you just don't use, and you want to be inclusive. So definitely you're not talking about my and whatnot. You want to talk about our, etc. But going a little bit further, people are also very sensitive. People are very sensitive, and so sometimes even in your best attempts to be inclusive, individuals may not understand and may become offended. And I think that is where especially the humility of the leader is necessary, not where you sit back and you figure, well, I'm in charge, it's their business, what they do, but where you can engage.
Yes.
There just has to be the consistent engagement and what happened, let's talk about it. And if it is that there was offense where you're not too proud and not too big to say, I'm sorry, that is not what I intended, this is really what I meant. And even in that, they get to see your heart and they get to see you as an individual, and everybody leaves that experience feeling a little bit better and ready to continue working again.
Miss Samuel, which is the most effective form of communication? Conversation, emails, or ignore the issues? They'll get around to it.
Conversation is definitely important. I know email has its place, or documentation has its place, because within the corporate structure, for instance, you do have to create a paper trail.
Definitely.
But conversation is important. Emails are impersonal, and a leader who just hopes that the issue will roll over or blow away is obviously afraid of confrontation and doesn't want to deal with the matter at hand. Conversation is important. Discussions are important. And I find it's very important to be able to do it by placing yourself in the other person's shoes. Because often we go into discussions and we have a clear perception, or we think we have a clear perception of what's going on and what the person is thinking of and how it should be addressed. And we get into the discussion and we realize, well, obviously we are seeing things completely differently. And I need to step back from what I think.
Don't be judgmental.
Yes, definitely. Because you can go into a conversation thinking, I've sized this up. And it may be black and white. Like, it may be an issue where the employee, for instance, does need to be reprimanded or disciplined. But inside of the conversation, you have to figure out how that should be done. And there have been many discussions when you go in and you're ready to lay down the hammer. But you realize when you delve deeper, compassion is required.
Somebody
understanding.
is arriving to work every day late, but it didn't happen over the last few years. It just started happening, and you're wondering what's going on. You write a letter, you make a note, you speak with the person, and then eventually you realize that person has a mother with Alzheimer's disease, and it's becoming, you know, worse and worse and worse, and that person is so frustrated. What that person needs right now is empathy. Not a penalty. Empathy. Thank you for watching The Paula Show. Tonight we have presented part 1 of our 2-part leadership conversation with Jameel Jonathan Lee and Cathrona Samuel. Join us on The Paula Show next week, Tuesday night at 9 for part 2 of our leadership presentation. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
The Paula Show is on.